Anyway, so follow us on social media. Cassie has some great stuff at Coach Cassie underscore R shit. Coach underscore Cassie RB on
Sorry,
Instagram.
it's confusing.
At Coach Cassie RB on Twitter. Hey, last week you looked down, I think, at something and had to say
I
it.
had to
So
double check it. Yeah, I
yeah,
screwed up.
it's all
So
right.
there's no qualms about that.
I'm at Jim Tara. Very simple on both Instagram and Twitter. All right, let's get into today's episode 10, cross functionality, untold stories from your collegiate career. You've got some good ones. I saw some notes as we were getting ready for the show today, and I want to ask first of all, I didn't know that your coach Pat Murphy did interviews. And you guys, I wanted to bring this one up first because he do like a weekly, because coaches do this at big time schools where they do those weekly coaches shows. Did he do some sort of coaches show? Is that what it was? And you guys sort of crashed that party?
So it's called Hey Coach, and it's
Okay.
So that show is weekly, and what it does is it has different sports coaches on every week. And they do it at a big Buffalo Wild Wings in Tuscaloosa. And if you go to that Wild Wings, it's like on speaker essentially the entire time, but you can tune into a radio, you can tune into a show. I'm sure we were on an app or something listening. And it was just the interview portion. The guy asks Murphy, hey, how are things going? How's the team looking? Those types of things. And it's a very like Tuscaloosa-esque thing. It's not national. It's very local. And what's cool is there's a portion at the end where people can call in and talk to the coaches. And I think obviously the most popular is the Nick Saban one when Nick Saban's in. But, what you have to understand about Alabama, especially Alabama 10, 15 years ago, was that, I got to Alabama in Nick Saban's second year. So football had not exploded like it's currently exploded. And so much of the feel of Tuscaloosa was still like deep South, still like, very like backwoods, like the only thing they care about is Alabama. So you'd get some interesting characters that would call in, and one of those interesting characters was our pitcher. And she would pretend to be this old lady named Edna from middle of nowhere Alabama that just would call in and talk to Murphy. So that was, I don't think he realized till like a year or two later who that was. But
what kind of questions would she ask?
It was, nothing inappropriate. Just like just pretending to be an old lady, just like asking, about how the team's doing, and then she would ask, like, Murphy, I've noticed you have a lot of brand new sneakers, like, and just like, little things to just make him like a little uncomfortable. Just like, are you buying new sneakers? Did you get a new haircut? Like, just things, little silly things that it's not that big of a deal, but at the time we just thought it was the funniest thing on the planet. And the fact that it was like probably 2 or 3 years later before anyone ever clued him into who was calling him, asking him personal questions.
There's a lot of things that happen during your freshman year as well. You sort of have an initiation, of a safe one at that, but you sort of have some sort of initiation you have to go through as a player. I went through a talent show. I juggled. But what is the story from your freshman year about keep your forks? So, and also, too, I want to ask you, what type of initiation did you guys have to do?
So the only like initiation was our first team meeting freshman year, and Murphy sits 2 stools down at the very front. He puts 2 athletes on the stools. I think he took a senior and a junior, and then he took a freshman to the front and put her right in the middle of the 2 stools. And he said, okay. And I mean, this is your first meeting ever with the team. He says, you have to stand up there for 30 seconds, no matter what. You have to tell us what motivates you. And the freshman like got really wide-eyed. She's like, right now? And he's like, yep. And he goes, you have 2 support sisters. If you need it, they'll pat you on the back if you get nervous. He starts his clock. He goes, go. And the whole time that I don't even remember what Kendall said. That was the freshman, because the whole time I was just thankful that I wasn't the freshman that had to go first. But that was like, if anything, he's going to get us comfortable talking in front of people. And, what better way to, do that than to bombard you with hey, here's a 30-second speech in front of your entire team, entire coaches. And it's funny because like something like that might have been nerve-wracking for anyone else. Like when you show up to a team and you had just watched them play at the World Series a month earlier and they were just on ESPN, like it's a very weird complex to be like, those were girls that like I was almost fangirling over a month ago. They were like, they just seemed impossibly large to me, and now they're on my team. That is such a strange complex. So that was what our initiation, if you will. But in that conversation at that first meeting, Murphy brings up the whole concept of when he was younger, he would be sitting at the dinner table with his his family, and if he heard his grandma say, "Keep your forks," that meant something bigger and better was coming. And so that idea of the best is yet to come was always he always associated keep your forks, the best is yet to come. So that was our theme that year. We get to the World Series and, there's a lot of hype surrounding our team. We play Michigan in the first game and lose. And if anyone knows the format of the Women's College World Series, men's too, but Women's College World Series, when you lose that first game, you have the very next day off. Then you have to win a doubleheader the next day, a doubleheader the day after that. And then the very next day is the championship series. So you have to win 4 games in 2 days and that and on the biggest stage. So your ability to and you're playing girls that are coming off of days off that are well rested, whatever it may be. It's grueling to come out of it. So it's almost been like a death wish. There had only been one team ever to lose the first game and go on to win it. And so we lose the first game. The next day we have a practice day. We come back from practice and we look inside our rooms. I mean, there must have been thousands of forks that they purchased because there was forks in plastic forks. Yes.
Yeah.
In our shoes, in our bags. I think the coaches and some of the support staff had, gotten the keys to get into the girls' rooms. And it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, we're not done yet. The best can be yet to come. It's very for sure to walk into that. Granted, we didn't win, but we went the next day and we knocked off the number 1 team in the country, the defending national champion. And then we went into the next day, we made it to the semis, so it's had some cool moments coming off of that for sure.
Yeah. And again, we're going through this exercise today because for potential future college softball players and what they can expect, there's a lot of stories that are untold that they can expect to happen. And a lot of times it provides a lot of fun. What is Lamb Ronda? Mentioned that as well. No, yeah. I couldn't even read the word at first. Yep. What is that?
Okay. So we had a night practice. This was my junior year. So we had a night practice and we show up and this word LAMRONBA, I had to really be careful spelling it, was written huge on our scoreboard. And our team is sitting there and we're like just, no idea what this was. What are our coaches trying to do? And then on top of it, they hand out t-shirts with this written on it. And we had come off of a season the year before. We were ranked number 1 in the country. We lose in super regionals at home on a walk-off. They changed the rule now. You can't have the away team be the home team. But we lose on a walk-off home run to the number 16 seed. And so we were coming in that year and we didn't really have that much support from the community. You could just tell they were pissed. We had high expectations the year before. And I think the whole thing Murphy was trying to do was bond our team over something kind of funny. But he goes, does anyone know what this word is? And I think someone figured it out. It was abnormal spelt backwards. And he's like, in order for us to be successful in this environment, we're going to have to be abnormal. We're going to have to look funny, do things that other people don't realize is working and be okay with it. And I think part of that was being okay walking around with a shirt with something silly on it. And I know it seems like a silly concept, but when Edna would call into these radio shows, that was one of the questions. She's like, I've seen your girls walking around with something funky on their shirt, So.
What was his answer to that?
Oh, you know what? I think he explained, the idea behind it. But it was one of those things. Again, it seemed so silly at the time, but in so many ways, when you talk about the culture of a team and getting people to bond over something that, is no one else is going to get, it worked. Essentially it worked. Whatever happened, Murph understood the culture of that team and it worked for the culture of that team that year. And I do think, I know the national championship happened in that 2012 season, but when you have 6 seniors that experienced so much the 4 years before and could carry over, that junior class already had 2 years under their belt. That sophomore class already had a year under their belt. The national championship is usually a culmination of the 4 years leading up to it. There's so much that had gone on leading up to it. So anyway, it was just, again, one of those silly fun stories that doesn't really get told, but it kind of lends to Murphy's coaching style and how he got people to bond over.
Were there any funny stories at hotels, on road trips? There has to be some little thing that sticks out that you remember.
Yeah. I think I talked about the Valley Toss throwing that Frisbee across the entire hotel. That was a big deal. When I think of those memories, we always had so much fun being with each other. And what was cool is it wasn't the starters and non-starters. It wasn't the pitchers and catchers and everyone else. It was, you had someone who's a freshman who never played hanging out with a senior All-American, and they'd go to lunch together. And I think that's rare. I say it's rare on female teams, mainly just because female teams are more susceptible potentially to cliques. But I know a bunch of guys, like guys have cliques too. I do think
female cliques, sure, of course they do, no doubt.
They'll have cliques on their team too, but I don't know. We just, I think that was important. We genuinely enjoyed each other's company. We had one girl who was in school to be a kindergarten teacher, and they were learning how to do the row your boat round, where like, you know, 2 people would start and then 2 people would start after that. And so she would practice with our class every now, or with our team every now and then on the bus.
Oh my God.
So like, you know, little things like that. We, you know what, one thing I meant to write down, I didn't, when we got done, probably because I was not a fan of it, but obviously it worked out. There was no social media. I think there was just YouTube really. That was, you know, Twitter was one thing that was a little bit more serious. YouTube was this big wide open thing. Yeah. And flip cameras were a thing that was like an HD filming.
Like the Motorola Razr.
Right, because you couldn't get high quality off your phone. So
remember those commercials? The Razr would like slice through things.
Yes, yeah. I do. Yeah, but so phone cameras were not high quality, so they had like flip camera or HD. It was like the name of the company or whatever it was. And so I had one teammate, Caleb Rowe from Oregon. We would get done playing, we'd get done with school. We'd have about a month to just play. We'd practice, lift weights, and then we'd have the rest of the day to kind of be like, what are we going to do? And she coordinated like music videos, essentially, like to What Makes You Beautiful. I think One Direction was like a really big band at the time. So again, stuff that you would think, I'm like, are these 12-year-olds or this is the number one team in the country? But I think the whole point of it is we had to find opportunities to have fun because there was so much pressure from trying to win a national championship. So
yeah. Did you guys have a study hall as well?
Not after school was over. So you had study hall as a freshman. That was mandatory. If you hit a certain GPA, you didn't have to go to study hall anymore. Okay. You always had the opportunity. It was an athlete only study hall. So you had tutors and resources there if you needed it. But then when you finished finals and you weren't taking classes during the month of May, you were just playing softball, you know, and so there really wasn't any other requirement besides eat, lift, train, practice. Then that was it. Go make dinner and watch movies with your team.
Yeah.